So first and foremost, thank you, Brianna, for such a wonderful presentation. She gave a wealth of information. And really what we're doing today is kind of scratching the surface, right? We're just getting you guys motivated, kind of going in the right direction. Because this is a long process. You'll have a lot of questions within the homeownership process. And so we want to make sure. Hear me out? All right. So, welcome. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Dulce. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you to the Housing Authority for putting on such a wonderful event. We've been participating as county representatives within this event for quite some time. This is the first time we've got it indoors, which I appreciate because it's pretty hot outside. And again, I appreciate your guys' enthusiasm showing up and willing to learn more about the process. Because it is a long process, and as first-time home buyers or repeat home buyers, you guys will have a lot of questions. So you do want to rely upon the experts in the field to whom you have access. And that will be your lender, that will be your real estate agent, that will be your county or city representatives if you're going to be pursuing below market rate housing through our different programs. And so myself, my name is Andrew, last name is Kish. I work with the County of Santa Barbara. I'm a housing program specialist within our Community Services Department. We have a Housing and Community Development Division, which oversees the production and the maintenance of affordable housing throughout the county, throughout the unincorporated parts of the County of Santa Barbara. We also have Maria Schroeder here as well. She'll speak after me and she'll discuss the City of Santa Barbara's program. And they have jurisdiction over all of the units, the local market rate units that are produced within the city. So altogether, lots of resources. We're happy to share the information about the details of the programs. Let's see. We've been introduced to the process so far, and here's our local programs. So I'll go ahead and get started. And certainly, if there's questions about clarity or you need me to repeat something, please raise your hand. If there's more detailed questions, and like we said, let's hold them until the end so we can go ahead and make sure that we get all the content covered. Okay, so workforce and ownership. I love this graph. This graph just discusses the purchase process components. What I love most about this picture is the fact that you can see that what is the cornerstone of the whole process? It's the mortgage, right? And so we discussed a little bit about the pre-approval process and obtaining a pre-approval letter from your mortgage lender if you're serious about discussing, submitting offers or even looking at properties. Now, I'll say this much. Before you start looking at properties, before you start going to open homes or open houses, communicate with a lender to get this pre-approval letter, because most real estate agents or sellers, they will not take you seriously unless you can demonstrate to them that they have the financing to back you up, to make yourself a bona fide buyer and allow that purchase process. And then further, to scrutinize this little cross-section, if we could, in this corner here of the mortgage, if there's a cornerstone to the mortgage, it's your credit, right? And so Brianna did a good job discussing how to take the necessary steps to take care of your credit, to review your credit, to improve your credit before you start this mortgage application process. I would suggest using all those resources, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But really, we're here to kind of scratch the surface, but the first thing you can do that you guys have the most control over right now is take a look at those credit reports, see where you stand. What's your credit score? Are you above 680? Ideally in that 700 range. Do you have outdated information? What things can you do to improve that score to put yourself in the best position? So here's our process. We'll get into the details. All right, so knowing the numbers. I love numbers, love math. Numbers don't lie. And as far as lenders are concerned, there was actually a good question last seminar about, are lenders able to, consider kind of gray areas, or do most lenders work kind of by the numbers? Generally, yes. You can say that they're going to take a look at particular criteria, specifically numbers, to determine whether or not you're going to qualify for the loan to allow that purchase, to qualify for that pre-approval letter. So what a lender is going to look at is here. They're going to want to see how much money does a borrower have to put in as a down payment. It could be as low as 3%. It could be as low as 0%. I heard people discussing the VA loan opportunities. If you do have a certificate of eligibility or access to one, then you can use that to qualify for a VA loan that would allow down payment, most lenders would require this. They like to see that you have some skin in the game. Now, as far as that down payment is concerned, are there resources that you can take advantage of to compensate for that down payment? And the answer is yes. I know in particular, there is a program that the county does fund. It's the Housing Trust Fund of Santa Barbara County, and their contact information is within this resource guide. The Housing Trust Fund of Santa Barbara County, they have a down payment assistance program for what they call the workforce. And what it is a sign-on second mortgage. So they'll give you a loan of up to maybe even $100,000, but you don't have to make payments on that until you either sell the property or some like 10 years down the line. So the goal is to get your foot in the door, and then maybe within that 10 years, refinance, pay off that other debt. But while you are in the purchase process, there's no monthly payment obligation for that second mortgage you would get from that down payment assistance program through the Housing Trust Fund at Santa Barbara County. So it's worth looking into. There are income parameters, and there are credit parameters as well. So you can go through the normal lender channels, but you reach out to those resources so you'll be able to take advantage of those opportunities. Closing costs, you want to be prepared for closing costs. So closing costs will be about 3 to 5% of the purchase price. And what will those closing costs include? You're going to want to get an inspection of the property. So you're going to want to hire an inspector to come out and make sure that the structural integrity is there. The lender is going to want to make sure that there's an appraisal done. The value of the property is being used as collateral for this, loan of maybe $750 million depending. They want to make sure that the value is there. Escrow fees, etc. So make sure to set aside or have enough money available, ideally, to cover about 3% worth of the purchase price, and that's just closing costs to get into the transaction. I will say that these down payment assistance programs, such as that Housing Trust Fund in Santa Barbara County, they will offer a credit toward those closing costs, maybe $5,000, what have you. So look into those opportunities to take advantage of the resources available to you. And your credit score. I love talking about credit. I can talk about credit for hours. Raise your hand. Has anybody seen a copy of their credit report within the last 12 months? Okay, 6 months? Okay, any resources, or where do you guys go to get the copies of your credit reports?
Credit card.
Credit card. There was another resource that was used. We'll talk about. I have the information up here. That annualcreditreport.com. They'll allow you to get copies of those reports, at least one from each one of those credit bureaus, one time every 12 months for free. Like Brianna mentioned, they don't have a score, but really what you're trying to do when you get the copies of those reports through annual credit report, make sure there's no errors, make sure there's no inaccuracies. Because if you do start applying for a loan because you found a house that you love, and then all of a sudden, I ran into a scenario where I was applying for a loan. It wasn't a mortgage, but I think it was like an auto loan. And my credit report showed a tax lien, a property tax lien under my name in the state of Texas. I've never been to Texas, right? And that was like a $10,000 property tax lien, which took potentially like, I think, 30 to 60 days to rectify. And so what can happen within that 30 to 60 days, I could lose out on an opportunity to buy my dream home because I didn't check my credit beforehand to recognize the inaccuracy. So I'd say look at those reports at least like 90 days before you're seriously starting to look around and maybe make an offer on a property or even apply for a mortgage, because it does take that long potentially to remove the inaccurate information. And that's our responsibility as a consumer to do it. Those credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, all they do is they record the information that's reported to them by these creditors. They don't filter the information. They require that the consumer look at those reports and identify what's accurate and inaccurate, and then take the necessary steps to remove that information. It's a process, but you certainly want to look into that before you start applying for mortgages. And then the debt to income ratio. We have criteria in the county's program, but in general, a lender wants to make sure that when they take a look at what the new mortgage payment will be, they add that to your consumer credit debt obligations that show up on the credit report. There's student loans, auto loans, credit cards, all those monthly payment obligations that show up on the credit report. The lender will add that to whatever the new mortgage payment will be on the loan that you're applying for. That total monthly payment should not exceed 45% of your monthly gross income. If it gets beyond that, will a lender lend if you have a debt to income ratio of about 45%? Maybe, but it's riskier, and you're going to pay for that with a higher interest rate. So you want to ideally keep that debt to income ratio less than 45%. The best way to do that is eliminate the consumer debt if you have the opportunity. When you're taking a look at your budget and you do recognize that you have a surplus, then take some of that surplus and start paying down that consumer debt, because the less consumer debt that you have, the more room you have within your budget to qualify for a loan to go up to maybe that 45%. And that's high. You know, if you can keep it closer to 38%, you're good, but 45% is really that.
Question. Since we're talking about low income home buying, what happens to those people that are on adjusted income and the AKA Section 8 Urban Housing and Human Affairs Program? We pay 30% of the market value rent, and the county's paying the other 75 or 80%, and there's a legal gap, there's handicap, special needs, blah, blah, blah. When we apply for credit, like if we're trying to build up our credit, and the bank will say, well, your debt to income ratio is off because you're paying more money in rent than what your income is. And then you try to explain to them, and they said, sorry, that's just the way it goes.
There's a factor that's considered by lenders. The question is,
it's how do low-income people rise up?
Sure. How do low-income people who are regularly paying 30% of their monthly gross income for their existing rent, how will they elevate to where they can become homeowners? One way to accomplish that would be to take advantage of this programs through the county and through the city that offer below market rate sales prices for units, housing units within the county and the city. We derive our sales prices based upon what we consider is affordable for a household that's earning up to 80% worth of the AMI. And so we'll have units that are targeted toward low income, very low income, upper moderate, workforce, etc. So this sliding scale of affordability. So through the county and the city's program, we set the sales price based upon what would be affordable for a particular household in that income category. Specifically, what's 30% of the monthly gross income for that household within that low income unit. We use that to determine the sales price. So the county's program and the city's program were designed to accommodate for the needs of people who are not paying any more than 30% of their income.
So,
Wait, sorry. We just like the last presentation, we're asking that the questions are at the end of the presentation, please.
Yeah.
We're recording and we want to make sure that I get for the recording.
Thank you, Eddie, for keeping me intact. So I appreciate that. That's a good question, guys. So we'll move forward. And we'll cover those. I'll cover that all in one areas. Talk about credit scores. 35% of paying history, 30% of the amount owed. This is what composes your score, right? And so you can recognize that really the payment history is going to establish the bulk of your credit score. And that payment history, if you guys have seen the detailed version of your credit reports that you will get through that annualcreditreport.com, where the other entities for the education reports, you'll see each trade line, right? So for instance, if I have an account with Montecito Bank and Trust, and I have an auto loan that had it for like 10 years, it's going to show Montecito Bank and Trust, it's going to show the loan balance that was originally lent, what the existing balance is. And there's 3 columns, 30, 60, and 90 days. And there's going to be numbers in each one of those columns. The numbers I want in each one of those columns is 0, because those 30, 60, and 90-day columns are the amount of times that I've been late on that auto loan with Montecito Bank and Trust. So ideally, I want to have like 24 months worth of impeccable credit history. No late payments, no collection agencies, no bankruptcies. I want to get at least 24 months worth of a solid credit history, payment history, with no late payments in order to put myself in that best position to have that credit score like roughly 700 or so or higher, so I can qualify for the best interest rate. So payment histories are important. And the amount that's owed, Brianna discussed all together with your revolving debt, right? There's a difference between installment debt and revolving debt. Revolving debt would be like credit cards, your open-ended accounts where when you pay down the balance, you still have access to that credit limit of potential, like let's say $5,000 credit card. Altogether, you do not want your total balances to exceed 30% of what the total available credit limit is. If you start going above 30% or even above 50%, a higher risk, and then your credit score comes down. So try and keep those balances low 30% of what the total credit limit is on each one of those credit accounts that you have, those consumer debt accounts. Length of history, the longer the better. Don't close out the older accounts, try and retain those if you can. New credit, limit the applications. If you are applying for mortgages and you are shopping around, make sure that all of those mortgage applications that you're making are ideally confined within like a 30 or 60-day period. Because like Brianna mentioned, those are hard inquiries. They do bring down that score, maybe like 5 points at a time. However, the credit bureaus don't recognize if you're making more than one application for a loan, whether it's a mortgage, auto loan, credit card, if you're making more than one application within like a 30-day period for the same type of credit, it will recognize that you're shopping around, and it's not going to penalize you for that. So it really only counts one time against you. So don't apply for a mortgage like twice in October, 3 times in November, and then once in December. That makes it look like you're getting denied. And so if you're getting denied a lot according to these algorithms, they're going to bring down that score. So confine those applications if you are shopping around within ideally like 30 days, maybe 60 days, more than that. And then types of credit use, diversify. Have maybe at least one account with a credit card, store card, auto loan, personal loan, something that's an installment. So it's at least one installment account and one revolving account. Ideally, a lender's going to want to see like 3 trade lines with a good history. So look around. You can also get a secured loan through a credit union or a bank, and that's just when you make a deposit of $5,000. They give you a loan of $5,000, and then you slowly pay off that debt. The $5,000 is always on retainer or collateral until you pay it off and you have access to this money again. So a secured loan is another way to help yourself develop credit. But credit is imperative. It starts and ends with there. So that determines the interest rate you get, which determines how much you can afford. So take a look at these factors. Get copies of those reports at least once a year. And then there are outlets that will help you review that information and make the improvements that we talked about. Okay, we kind of talked about this, credit reports. Here's the phone number for that same annual credit report. They can send a copy through the mail, or you can get a copy, you can download it through the annualcreditreport.com. That gives you the information that you're entitled to at least once per year. Because it's our responsibility to filter that information, so we got to have access to that information. So here's those reports. Okay, so local programs. So the county. We had a handout. I put it at the beginning. You guys may see it looks kind of like this, right? And then this is what we encourage people to complete and then return to our office so that we can register you in a county database of prospective buyers for our inclusionary housing units that are sold at a below market rate to individuals that meet specific income criteria. So on the back side of this, you'll see a long list of all the different eligibility criteria.
I just worry about feedback or whatever, but
some of the more important ones. So we require, and there's some differences between the county and the city. The city's program, they have different income limits and they have different criteria. The programs generally operate the same, but there's just different criteria. Specifically, this is one that we have that's different from theirs. So the county requires somebody to buy our homes, to buy the units within our portfolio. We say that you may not have owned a home within the last 3 years. So you need to be a legitimate first-time home buyer without ownership of residential real estate, improved residential real estate in the last year.
if it gets loud, just power it off or power
right?
from
So
the side.
just hold it down. Okay. If you were to purchase one of the city's units, and if you had owned property in the past, then you need to be divested from that old property before you purchase the new one. She's at the time of application, and she can elaborate on that. So ours is more strict. We say you can't have owned anything within the last 3 years. We really want to, we have a difference in
Andrew,
our policy.
sorry, can I have you put this on? Yes, no problem.
So what else we got? The household should have been established for 6 months prior to making the application. And what that means is if there's a unit that's available for sale within our program, if it's like a 2-bedroom unit, then we would require a household of at least 2 people and no more than 5, right? We don't want it to be overcrowded necessarily. So if there's a household that applies as a 2-person household to move into the 2-bedroom unit, we want to make sure that household has been established for a period of 6 months prior to avoid somebody saying, oh, I'm going to buy this house for, $185,000, but I need a household of 2 and I'm just a household of 1. So I'm going to call my cousin and say, hey, you want to go in on this house with me? We don't want that, right? We don't want a fabrication of a household. We want a legitimate household to apply for these. So the household must have been established for 6 months prior. The applicants for our program, they must live or work within Santa Barbara County. And we're actually in the process of making that a little bit more strict, to tell you the truth. We're going to try and do eventually, within probably the next 6 months, almost like a descending order of preference, which will prioritize South County employees above and beyond the remainder of the applicants from the rest of the county. The county's big, right? It goes all the way from Carpinteria to Santa Maria. North County is a little bit more affordable. We recognize that. And so our purpose is, we recognize South County is very expensive. And so we want to give people the opportunities to live close to where they work. And so if you're working in South County, it's going to be a harder barrier to find a house to own. So eventually we will provide or establish that descending order of preference. But for now, we just require that you either live or work within Santa Barbara County. We also require that the unit will be the applicant's primary residence. You can't rent out the units. You'd be surprised at what people try and get away with. But the goal is not to allow someone to have a rental property and then earn income off of that. Our goal is to make sure that people have a unit that they can reside within for at least 10 out of the 12 months of the year. You can go on vacation, you can go on sabbatical, but we need to make sure that it is your primary residence, that you are not renting it out. Any portion you cannot rent out. You'd be surprised about what people try to get away with on these, Airbnbs and the VRBOs nowadays. And so we catch them. We have programs that recognize that. So, we truly want them to be somebody's primary residence because there's such a shortage of homes for people to live in close to where they work, especially in South County. We require at least 3% down payment. However, we will work with individuals depending on the loan program. So if there's a VA loan that allows 100% financing, we're okay with that. If there's a piggyback loan where someone gets a first mortgage for like 80% and then a down payment assistance for the 20%, that's fine with us too. Typically, as long as a lender, like a reputable lender, local lender ideally, would approve a mortgage, generally, as long as it has a fixed interest rate with a fully amortized payment, meaning that you're not making interest-only payments, that the payment you make each month goes toward the principal and the interest, that's what we require. So we want to make sure that someone actually has the ability to pay off the loan that they're obtaining in order to qualify for these. Our problem is that if these loans or if these homes get foreclosed upon because someone gets into a predatory loan and they can't afford the payments, then we lose that unit from our program. And these units are hard to come by. So we'll do our best to protect them, but it's best to set it up front where people have the opportunity to succeed. So therefore, we want at least a down payment of 3%, show some skin in the game. We have a resale covenant. Our covenants, we have jumped on the coattails of the city finally and stretched out the terms. So really, our program is not designed to enrich the populace. Beforehand, we had affordability terms that would only last 30 years. And then at the end of that 30-year term, someone can sell the property that they bought for $185,000 for close to $500,000, and they get a windfall of equity. That doesn't help our process. It doesn't help our program or our cause. And so we have made the change to where all of our affordable units that are being produced moving forward will have an affordability term of 90 years. We have a pretty good portfolio of close to 350, maybe 400 units that abide by those old covenants. And so those do come up for resale occasionally, and whoever holds the title when the property has a deed restriction that expires, let's just say 2030, the affordability restriction expires, then they could come into the equity. We can't retroactively change that. Go ahead. Sure, sorry. So we will, for all the new units that the county is producing through the new developments, of any new development of 5 or more units altogether, that'll fall under the affordability, blanket that the county has over the county, our overlay. And so the new units that are being produced, they will be bought and sold and refinanced at a below market rate for a period of 90 years. So the goal is really not to enrich someone who moves in, but give them an opportunity to live within a place and afford the payment. And people will build equity, right? Because we do allow the property to increase in value slightly every year, and then the borrowers are paying down the principal on that mortgage. So you'll build equity that way in the long run. But the goal is not to give, a gift of public funds of like $500,000 to someone after 30 years. That defeats the purpose of our program. So we've made that change. And thank you to Maria and her staff for showing us the light because we've got there eventually. Okay, income and asset restrictions. You can see that, here's a grid on both sides that kind of recognizes the income limit for the household size that can qualify for each one of these income thresholds. So for instance, a low income 1-bedroom unit would sell for $185,000. We ensure that a household of at least 1, 2, or 3 does not earn more than $66,000 as a household of 1, $76,200 as a household of 2, $85,750 as a household of 3 in order to qualify. And that's how we determine what the sales price is. So based upon those incomes, we work backwards. Okay, what is 30% of the monthly income for a household that earns $66,000, $7,000? And then from there, that's how we get the sales price. Because we do factor in monthly HOA dues, we do factor in PITI, all the things we want to factor in to make sure it's going to be affordable and that nobody's spending more than that 30% of their monthly gross income on the payments that they're making toward the mortgage. So it's a great point you brought up earlier, and we do factor that in because we do want to make sure it's still truly affordable. Let's hold the question until the end because I got to give Maria some time as well, and we're getting close. Okay, so here are the income limits, the asset restrictions. We require that a household that's applying for one of the units under the county's program does not have liquid assets that exceed 50% of the sales price. So if that 1-bedroom unit in Carpinteria is selling for $185,000, we ensure that the liquid assets, that would be like checking, savings, investments, anything that's not retirement accounts. So we don't count 401ks, we don't count IRAs, but anything that has a liquid asset, we would ensure that the total liquid assets for the applicants that are buying the place do not exceed 50% of the purchase price. So if the sales price is $185,000, we want to make sure that the household applying doesn't have liquid assets of over 90 something, 92, 93,000. We figure if that's the case, then maybe they're not legitimately like low income. So income and asset limits, FICO score, we say 620. People can qualify for an FHA loan with a credit score as low as like 580. And there are compensating factors, right? So somebody, if they have issues with their credit because maybe they went through a recent separation, maybe they had recent medical issues that caused them to rack up all sorts of debt. Lenders will, and the county will, consider compensating factors if somebody has a stable job that they've had for 25 years. They just happen to run on some hard luck within the last 7 years, and that's showing up in the credit report. You can still qualify for a mortgage with a credit score of 580. It's not the best interest rate, and it does require that you have a pretty significant amount of mortgage insurance to protect the lender. But we say at least 620 for the credit score, which ranges, like I said, or like we discussed, between 300 and 850. The higher the score, the better. The higher the score, the lower interest rate you're going to get, the more affordable of a payment you'll have. And then the max debt to income ratio, again, the mortgage payment plus all of the consumer debt on your credit report, the monthly mortgage payment plus monthly consumer debt payment obligation should not exceed 45% of the total monthly gross income for the household. So altogether, eliminate the consumer debt. If you eliminate the consumer debt, you'll have more room to afford a higher mortgage payment and then not exceed that 45%. Okay, so getting started, interest list sign-up form, put that together. You could email it to me. You can drop it off at our office. My contact information is at the bottom of page 2. So then that way, we'll put you in our database. There's no ranking within our database. Even if you signed up 10 years ago, it doesn't mean you're at the top of the list. We encourage people to reapply every 6 months, and we concentrate on those who have expressed interest within the last 6 months. We do give special consideration to those who can show us that they've been pre-approved or pre-qualified. So anybody who turns in one of these interest lists, the next thing we're going to say is, have you been pre-approved or pre-qualified? Because a lot of times with our existing owners of the affordable stock that we have, if they contact me and they, hey, I got a 2-bedroom up at Oak Grove that I want to sell, they're not going to want to work with someone who hasn't established their financing yet. So get the interest list into the county so we can have you in our database. So we'll contact you anytime that a unit becomes available for sale. And then gather the necessary documents for the county application, but you're also preparing for that mortgage pre-approval as well. We ask for the same documents that the lender would. We ask for more documents than the lender would. We want 6-month statements from your bank. We want 6 months pay stubs, whereas the lender only really asks for 2. Start gathering your tax returns, W-2s, for the last 2 years. Is anybody self-employed? There's no hurdles for self-employed individuals. There's entirely options for them to qualify just as easily as somebody who's a W-2. For a self-employed individual, you would have to put together last 2 years worth of tax returns, a year-to-date profit and loss statement, ideally signed by like whoever does your taxes, like a CPA, what have you. 12 months worth of bank statements, because a lender is going to want to recognize the in and out of the money. So you may get large deposits, but then what's going out at the same time. So a little bit more documentation for self-employed people, but it's entirely possible. So retirement account statements, IRA, 401k, put together the last quarter's worth of that documentation. Right to permanently reside, we want to see that. We are a little flexible in that sense, where if somebody is making progress toward permanent residency status or progress towards citizenship, and they can document that with a letter potentially from an immigration attorney, then we could work with that, as long as you're showing us you're taking the steps forward. Credit reports from all 3 bureaus, and then a pre-qualification, or ideally a pre-approval from a mortgage lender. So start gathering those documents, right? Because that's the hardest part. Just get your financials together so that you can go to a lender, and we can make a referral to lenders. We can make a referral to Montecito Bank of Trust and other local mortgage brokers who are comfortable with lending on deed-restricted properties. There's a little bit more red tape with our programs, but we recognize that we provide the lender with what they need up front so they can see that the collateral is worth the money. And they have no barrier in trying to accomplish what they want to get done. Okay. Pre-purchase education, we're here, gathering necessary application documents. That's your homework, right? So start getting that information together. If you can, put it in PDF files so that you can just reach out to a lender and say, here you go, here's an email with all my financials, run my credit, what type of interest rate do I qualify for, how much of a loan can I qualify for? So really that's where the rubber meets the road. Gather those documents, get those credit reports. At the bare minimum, just to make sure there's no fraud, there's no inaccurate information or outdated information. I may have a bankruptcy on my credit report from 13 years ago, and it doesn't have to be there. I can make the request to remove that because it's outdated information. And if I remove that, that's going to really boost my credit score. So take a look at things that are outside of that window of 7 years. And if it's derogatory, then you can make a request to remove that information. And that will certainly boost your score. But get a copy of those reports because it does start with that. Increased savings. We talked about the budgeting earlier. For down payment and closing costs, and then contact your lender. We can always make a referral. I know that we have lenders here as well that will communicate with you guys for the next session, so stick around for that, and then we can give you guys details on which loan products are the best for the individual. And here's my contact information. It's on the handout, this one that we gave you guys. And then we will be around for questions, but that's all I have. And I'll turn it over to Maria Schroeder from the city of Santa Barbara. Thank you, Maria. Oh, yes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So my name is Maria Schroeder, and I'm with the city of Santa Barbara. And so our program is within the city boundaries. We have about 400, let me, on the slide, nope, is, hi, can you take me to the city, then?
I guess.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to cover is an overview of the affordable ownership program within the city, and then I'm going to outline the eligibility requirements and the process of being selected to purchase one of the affordable units. Talk a little bit about the affordability covenant. I'll give you some recommendations, and then my contact information. So myself and my coworker, Mindy Hageman, we are both available to answer any questions that you have regarding the units for the city. So I'm going to define affordable in the ownership program, and basically that's the gross household income for ownership is 40% of your household income. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. And housing, Andrew mentioned PITI, and what that stands for is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. It also includes HOA, because most of these, at least for the city, most of these are all condos, so they're going to come with HOAs. So the way that these are kept affordable is through what's called a covenant, and it's an agreement between you and the city that there's certain restrictions that you are going to abide by because you're being allowed to purchase a property below market value. We have 396 units, and some of them include workforce housing. So if you work for Westmont or Cottage Hospital, there's special, they have their own programs, and they have a more of a waiting list. Our list is not a waiting list. It's an interest list. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So you can see here the numbers here. We have 25 units that are in the low income category. We have 209. So most of them are in the moderate income category. And that doesn't mean that if there is a moderate income unit that becomes up for sale, that a low income person wouldn't be able to buy. You might have to put more down and it's going to be at a higher price, but you would be eligible. You just cannot make more than what's in the moderate income category. And then we have 108 in the middle income. We have 17 in the upper middle category. And then there is also a category, East Beach Collection, that they're not income restricted, they're actually price restricted. And those go up 2.5%, I think it's 2.5% every year. The way that the other affordable units increase in value is because there's something called area median income, aka AMI. Right now it's 113,300. And so the pricing is based on that. There's a calculation. Okay. Now you might wonder, where are these affordable units within the city of Santa Barbara? So you can go to this link up here or follow these steps and it'll take you to the map of where the affordable units are. The red ones, so the red and blue ones are different. The blue ones, I believe, are the multifamily. It'll tell you when you go, it'll show you which are the red and which are the blue. So within the city, that's how you can go and see where the affordable units are located. So Andrew covered a lot of how to know that you're eligible, and our program is similar to the counties. You have to live or work in Santa Barbara, and that's from Gaviota to the Ventura County line. Your household income cannot exceed the income category for the selected unit. So if there's a unit that comes up that's in the low income range, then for us, one person cannot make more than $98,850, two people, et cetera, et cetera. The reason that the low income, you'll see, it's more than the moderate income is because for this category, HUD gives us this information. These numbers are all calculated based off of the area median income. So I know it doesn't make sense, but that's the reasoning behind it. So our program requires you to put 5% down. Now, if you have a VA loan, then we would work with you and that would be the 0% down option. Your credit score needs to be 620 or better. And as Andrew said, you can Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can locate your credit score and your credit report through them. The debt to income ratio, 40% for housing. So that's the principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and HOA. And then overall, which includes the housing debt and your consumer debt, so anything that shows up on your credit report would be the consumer debt, is 50% of the household income. So you're not a current homeowner at the time of application or during ownership. And that includes land, it includes, you could call us and ask, but it includes a variety. Commercial property, you could own commercial property in our program. Gift, so some people get gift funds, but only up to 20% of the purchase price. All occupants 18 years or older within the household are subject to all of the requirements, but we would work with you. Like if you have a 19-year-old in your household, they're going to school and they have a part-time job, that's fine. We would not have to include them. But if they're working full-time and they're in the household, then we would include them within the paperwork and the household income. We do allow a co-signer for loan purposes only. That's different than the county, right, Andrew? No co-signer for, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. So how are you chosen for one of the affordable units? In the city's program, the owner chooses the buyer. So if they have someone that's eligible, then we go with that. If they don't have someone that's eligible, then they ask for the city's interest list. And we provide that to the seller, and the seller chooses off of that. For new units, we do a lottery system. So the county, all of theirs is through lottery. So just remember that our interest list, you can give me your name and information, or I believe there's an interest list. I can get your information here and put you on the interest list or email you that form. But our interest list is not a waiting list, okay? Just like to clarify that. Okay, what are the requirements or restrictions of owning one of the city's affordable ownership units? We have a 90-year covenant, and it restricts the value that's calculated off of the area median income, as I said, and you do gain equity. Owner occupancy, you have to live in the property for 10 out of the 12 months, and you are allowed to, you can ask the city that, let's say you're taking care of a sick relative that lives in another state. We do allow you to not live in your unit for up to a year, but you have to discuss that with the city and then get a waiver. Or if you go on a sabbatical, or you whatever other ways that you might be out of your unit longer than 2 months. So if there's any financing, let's say you refinance, you need to discuss it with the city, and we need to approve it so that we make sure that it's not negative amortization. And for the most part, it's not. Usually we don't approve adjustable rate mortgages and other type of higher risk loans. So the rental of a unit. You can rent out the unit, but the city would set the rent price. So it's going to be at it's going to be below market rate. And that would only be up to a year. You can rent out a room without discussing it with the city. Let's say you have a 3-bedroom place, then you could rent out a room. You cannot own any real estate during the whole time that you own the property. So here's my recommendations. First things first, make sure that your credit is where you need it to be able to purchase a home. So choose a lender and get pre-qualified. At least go through the steps so that you know what it entails, because it is a lot to collect all that documentation. Work on any items that need to be addressed, as Andrew had mentioned. Sign up for interest lists. So sign up for the county, sign up for the city. There's the city of Goleta. There are a variety of interest lists to sign up for. And then this is how you contact myself or my coworker, Mindy Hageman. And then I'm going to questions. Oh yeah, sorry. Sure. So I'll leave that up there for a second, but some typical questions are, who handles affordable units to rent? So for the most part, it's gonna be in your resource guide. It's gonna be the housing authority. It's gonna be people's self-help. Some others that you guys do you handle rentals?
The county is the property management company.
Okay.
Tasked with building the units, so yeah.
Okay, so the city and the county are not the contact for rentals. But we can always send you the resource guide and let you know of some entities or organizations that do handle affordable or lower income rentals. How long would I have to be on the interest list before I'm chosen? Again, for the city, it's not a waiting list, it's an interest list. But the county, they when there is a sale that comes up, you post it on the county website, and then theirs is done through lottery. Sounds like most of the units are condos with HOAs. Would my HOA be lower because it's an affordable unit? No, not necessarily. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that the HOAs can increase over time. But that is, when you qualify in the beginning, that is factored into your overall debt to income. What happens if I own one of the affordable units and then my income increases? So it's not like a rental. You don't have to re-qualify. So if your income increases or decreases, it's on you to budget as a homeowner. And so if it increases, you wouldn't be kicked out of your property. Can my heirs inherit the property? Yes, they can. They would need to, though, so let's say you leave the property to your son and daughter. The son and daughter would have to qualify in the income sector to then have that covenant transfer over to them. So, and that concludes my presentation. You're welcome. I can leave that up here. Andrew, you want to come up for questions? How much time do we have for answering questions? We'll just go for it. Okay. Ma'am?
Yeah, I came to hear about rent units, and so you don't have any information about that?
Well, within the programs, there might be there is information about rentals, but
I'm on the list, but I don't have no idea.
Okay.
The county has, we have deed restricted units that are created for ownership and that are created for rentals. The property management company for the rental projects are tasked with filling those units. We can provide you, I'll give you my contact information. I'll give you a list of all the different rental developments that we have with their contact information. And then then you can reach out to them to inquire if there's any vacancies, and then therefore if you'd like to submit an application.
Okay.
And the housing authority, a lot of the contact information is within that pamphlet you have. So the housing authority, if you go to their site, they have all the different properties. So in the back. Yes, sorry.
So what happens if your heirs do not qualify as invoice? What then happens to the property?
Then the heirs would sell the property.
Oh.
And the heirs would, yeah. Thanks. We can transfer this back and forth. Hello?
396 units right now that are available. How many are occupied?
All of them are occupied.
Okay, so then getting on an information list puts you on a list in 90 years, or if they sell within the 7-year.
They can sell at any time. People sell because they get married, they get divorced, they have to move out of the area because of a job change, or maybe a sick relative lives out of the area and they sell. We have people selling all the time for a variety of reasons.
And the owner of the property thus fix the buyer.
In the city, yes, that's how it's done, but in the county, it's done by lottery.
By a lottery. Now, did you guys present over at Del Vera Plaza last year? Well,
Yes.
we had that big functions in
Yes.
Silver Plaza. Oh.
Any other questions? We'll go over here. Yes?
What do you do, this, what do you do?
So I can grab your name and email information to get you on the interest list.
And then after that, like you wait months?
Okay, so for the city, you would be on the interest list, and if the seller does not have an eligible buyer, they would ask for the interest list. You would hear from a seller, that's in the city, but in the county, you would check the county's website and see when they have units available. You just had a, I don't know if this works out.
The county, if you're registered within the county's database by completing that form and submitting it, then renew it every 6 months.
Yes.
Because people move, people's income changes, and so as long as you're renewed and current within 6 months, we will reach out and we'll send you an email, make a phone call saying, hey, we have a new project down in Carpinteria. Is that something that you would be interested in? As long as the unit fits your income category and your household size. And then to increase your opportunity of getting contacted, we distinguish who's pre-approved for a mortgage and who's not. Because oftentimes it may take someone a month or so to get pre-approved for that loan, but the seller doesn't have that long to wait. The seller wants to move quickly. So having registered and then having that pre-approval letter, that's going to put you at the top of our list. And generally the city's list as well, because the city, even if they let the owner choose the buyer, they're not going to choose somebody that doesn't have a pre-approval letter, right? So you have to have that letter established current in order to be realistically considered.
And same thing with the city. We ask that you please refresh your information every 6 months, 6 months to a year, I would say. No, it's through the city of Santa Barbara and the county of Santa Barbara. Okay. Yes, in the back?
We put that on you.
Yeah.
we don't call you and say, hey, it's time to renew. We just expect that you would reach back out to us via email, phone call. Just let us know that you're still interested and that you still fit within a particular income category.
And the city would be the same way. You can email us and let us know. Lady in the front. Yeah, I'm in the front.
How about the county? Is the county working on new development right now or in the near future?
Yes, lots.
Repeat the question.
Sure.
Oh,
Is the county working or working through new developments? And the answer is yes. The county has recently, and the city has recently come under particular requirements from the state to accommodate for much more housing than is currently available. So there's going to be a lot of development within the next 8 years to accommodate for the housing need, especially in South County. So the county, we do have several projects in the pipeline. One in particular was just completed down in Carpinteria, available to low-income households. And so those units, I think they started advertising for those. It's the Polo Villas, and that's down next to the Polo Fields. There's going to be 6 units total, 5 are 1 bedrooms, 1 2-bedroom. 3 of the 1 bedrooms are available to low-income households of 1 to 3 people. 2 of the 1 bedrooms are available to moderate income households of 1 to 3, and then the 2-bedroom in the moderate category is available for a household of 2 to 5 within the moderate category. So we are in the process of trying to accept applications for people to try and purchase those units, so long as the household size and the income level fits the criteria. So
What are those it's going to go for price rise?
An affordable price according to the income category. So for instance, the 1-bedroom unit in the low income category will sell for roughly $187
For a 1 bedroom?
for a 1-bedroom.
How much were the ones in Cart? Was there 2?
Those are
Two, three, four.
the Polovias?
Oh, how much are those?
So yeah, the
Those
one.
are workforce, so.
Repeat the question to him.
Sure.
So I was asking how much is are the workforce housing, that category, Polo Field units going for?
Sure. So the 2-bedroom is designed to be affordable to a moderate income household. The sales price will be about $450,000 for the 2-bedroom. The 1-bedrooms in the low income category sell for about $185,000. And then the 1 bedroom in the moderate income category, the 1 bedrooms in the moderate income category, those sell for about, I think, a little bit over 300,000, maybe like 330, maybe even close to 350. But we designed the price again to be affordable to the household that fits that criteria. Our goal is to have that household incomes, no more than 30% of that household income to be consumed by the monthly mortgage payment. So we back into it. So we'll make sure that the payment's affordable for that.
So what do you, if you're a low income person and you're not in the workforce, you don't qualify.
Everybody's in the workforce, right? If you're working in Santa Barbara County, you're in the workforce. And you don't need to work here in order to qualify. You could be retired. We work with people that have been retired that are on fixed income. So the description of workforce, we're trying to pull away from identifying that as households that earn between 120 to 200% area median income, because you can't tell me that someone that earns up to 80% area median income isn't a part of the workforce, right? So try and take the word workforce like out of the vocabulary when it comes down to identifying income categories. We just really work on those numbers, like what percentage of the area median income, what criteria do you fall within. We make sure that the sales price will be affordable to a household that doesn't earn more than that threshold.
So when low income is about 185,000 for a 2 bedroom or 1 bedroom?
For a 1 bedroom.
For a 1 bedroom unit.
What is income level 2 make? What's the lowest and the highest rate?
So third.
The lowest amount is, can you afford the mortgage, right?
Right.
The highest amount
So it's not trying to afford the mortgage, it's dollar value.
we don't have a basement.
It's not a work.
We don't have a basement. The county doesn't have a basement on how much that you must earn. We say you can't earn this much. So this income.
So there are other income categories. There's very low income and there's extremely low income. The low income household, that's the lowest that the ownership category goes to, is the low income category, and that's how the units are priced. So you would need 5% down or 3% down, and then have to be able to qualify for a mortgage.
Yeah, for our low income program, for a purchase of a 1 bedroom unit, let's say a 1-person household cannot earn more than $66,700. That's very different than the city. City adheres to a higher threshold, and that's the difference between our two programs. I think they go by a particular standard that we have not adopted yet. So we just say that the household that can qualify for the 1 bedroom in a low income category, household of 1 can't earn more than $66,700. Household of 2 cannot earn more than $76,200. So we just put the ceiling on the amount that somebody can earn. Now, Maria mentioned a really important point, which was if you purchase a unit, we do not limit the amount of income that you can earn after you purchase. We don't want to curb the social mobility. So we say if you can move into a unit and show that you earn $66,700, next year you can earn $1 million and we don't care. You know, we want to make sure that you still kind of increase your earning potential. We don't want to limit that, which is different with the rental units. The rental units in our portfolio, and potentially through the housing authority, they do limit the amount that you can earn. From what I say, or there's programs that just require that 30% of your income goes, and et cetera. But we do not ever want on the purchase side, we don't want to limit the amount of money that you can eventually make, because we want to curb that.
Yeah. So the workforce that makes sense, because if you're working and you're making $67,000, not $69,000, you can afford $3,000 or $2,800 or whatever it is. It's the people that are.
Well, it depends what your consumer debt is too, because if you have an
Well,
auto loan and stuff, yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts to it. So, yeah. Lady in the white jacket.
Did you have your own bank or mortgage?
You would go through a lender, so you can go through your bank or any institutional lender. You choose. We can make a recommendation, but yeah, you can choose. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if for the county qualification, is it okay to own property in the county, or you can't own any property in the county or state?
Or a country. The county's program is strict. So currently we say within the last 3 years, somebody may not have owned improved residential real estate. If they own like a parcel of land like out in the middle of Colorado that doesn't have a building on it, we're fine with that.
So like a property 10 years ago?
That's fine, as long as you haven't owned it within the last 3 years. Yeah. Whereas the city is different. Go ahead.
Still the current owner.
Oh,
For the county now.
yeah, for the county, we just require that you do not and have not owned residential real estate within the last 3 years prior to making the application for the new place.
But for the city, you have to have not owned a property at the time of application. So you can own something and be selling it at the time of application.
But for the city, you have to live in the city, correct?
You have to live or work. Right.
Or
yes.
from Gaviota to Ventura County line, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does the city have a household timeframe like the way the county has the 6 month establishment of household?
So the question is, does the city have a household, established household like the county does? And at this time, we do not. I said at this time, we do not, because I would hope to move in that direction.
Just want my daughter to move back.
Oh, yeah. In the back.
How do you like monitor people after they purchase? I know you're saying like have to live there for 5 months, so a year. Like is someone reading down your neck, like checking in on you, like how?
Good question. How does the city or county monitor compliance with the covenant or the agreement that the buyer has signed, saying that they will live under the guidelines of the program for 90 years? We have a lot of different methods, right? Enforcement capacity. We would, at the minimum, the county requires that people complete an annual survey under penalty of perjury saying, have I refinanced within the last 12 months? Have I acquired property within the last 12 months? Have I rented the property within the last 12 months? And people lie, but we catch them. Yeah, and really, it's a lot of it is reactionary, because we can go knock on doors and do that, but we don't have the staff. But oftentimes we find out because of the neighbors, right? These are larger developments. Rarely will you ever find a single family residence within the program because our program is required for developments of 5 units or higher. So what happens is the neighbors who do play by the rules see other people shirking the responsibility, and there's inequity there. So they're the first ones to contact us and say, hey, guess what? So-and-so moved across country and bought a house in Georgia, and now they're renting it out to their nephew. What are you guys going to do about it? And then we have all sorts of, within the agreement itself, it gives us opportunities to ensure specific performance for that particular agreement. People don't want to go down that route, because we could potentially get the district attorney involved, and then there's like litigation. So ideally, there's an agreement, and it's lengthy. It's probably like, I don't know, 18 pages that says that you're making a covenant to us. You're promising us that you will live under the guidelines of the program, and if you don't, then we'll force you to sell the unit. We can require that people pay us, tens of thousands of dollars depending on the damages that have been applied. So we don't want to go that route, but we do have teeth if we need to.
Just take some more questions here.
So I just want to answer that for the city. The city does do a yearly compliance check. And again, you answer the questions just like Andrew's program. But we also do a check. We are allowed to do a background check. We do that initially when you buy, but we can do a background check, and we can check nationally if you are an owner of any kind of land or property nationwide. And so we do that. We also have the neighbors that contact us and let us know who is breaking the rules. And from there, we try to get the person back on track, compliant. We'll work with them, but the price of the property is frozen at the time that the owner is non-compliant. So how many more questions? 2 more questions? Yes?
Okay, so does it make it any easier for a person to want to buy a home if they're on Section 8?
So does it make it any easier if someone is on Section 8 and wants to buy a home?
Or is it the same?
It's the same process. I mean, because Section 8 gives you the benefit. Sorry, the question is, does it make you any easier if you're on Section 8? And the answer is no, really, because Section 8 you only get the voucher if you're renting, right? You can't take that voucher and apply it to a purchase. So Section 8 has that idea that you're not paying more than 30% of your income toward the rent. We apply that same idea to how we price the units. And so theoretically, you should be able to move laterally to purchase something within your own income category and not have to pay more than 30% of what your income is. So by design, we try to keep it, all things consistent, but we don't allow, there's no opportunity to use a voucher to qualify to reduce your mortgage payments.
And with home ownership, the thing to keep in mind is, with rentals, the beauty of renting is that your landlord is responsible for making repairs. Home ownership comes with more responsibility. You have to keep up the property, deferred maintenance needs to be done, and you have that HOA that you're responsible for as well. Yes,
But,
last
I
question.
think off the top of that, to answer your question, Social Security allows people, on Section 8 to own homes. I guess it's been that way for 10 years. You may own a home, but the home has to be in a trust, like with your children being the trust owner. Because they're taking care of your care.
So that is a Section 8 guideline. It's not necessarily part of the ownership. So
Right,
they're
so
two
it's a
separate
completely
things.
different thing. So
Yeah.
you're on the open market.
One last question? No, okay. So if you have any questions, you can contact Andrew, myself, or maybe Hageman. And as you might be able to tell, we get super excited about trying to get people in homes and talking about mortgages, and it's very confusing. There's a lengthy process, so, or a confusing process, it can be. So we love answering your questions. So we're going to be here for a little bit longer. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.